Tim Petrowich here for Dateline Marion, and our guest again is Marion head football coach Kerry Martin as we head into week 9 of the regular season in football. And before we start talking a little bit about the Carbondale game, can you believe it's week 9 already?
Crazy. And we were just having a meeting, having a film session with our kids, and we were talking about how we remember vividly 7-on-7 tournaments, camp, the Dunlap game, which, just this stuff is happening so fast in football season. You get into a routine once the season starts of what you do on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and the week, and boy, they just fly by. The school year doesn't seem to go that fast, but that first 9 weeks of school with football season is the fastest 9 weeks of the year. We've already started the second quarter of our school year, and football makes that first quarter fly by. It's crazy. Week 9 already.
Last week, final conference game of the regular season, 42-21 win over Carbondale. Let's talk a little bit about the first half, because first half, and we talked about this a little bit Friday night in the post-game interview, maybe one of the best halves of football you put together all year.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I thought all 3 phases of the game played well. I thought our defense was outstanding. I thought our offensively, they did some things on defense that I thought were good scheme-wise, and I thought that they were different things than we had seen, I guess is what I'm saying, things we hadn't seen all year. And I thought our kids really handled that well and made some adjustments, and still found a way to get the ball across the goal line and put several early touchdowns on the board, and just a really well-executed first half.
The game kind of started out slow, but we all the time football coaches and football people talk about field position, and you were able to have a distinct advantage on field position. Starting off with kicking that first kickoff into the end zone for a touchback, and then Carbondale couldn't move it, and then a couple of punts, and they're punting out of their end zone, and you started that first scoring drive on the 26-yard line.
We did, and it makes a difference when you've got that field position. The playbook gets completely opened up for you, where when you're pinned back on the 20 or the 10-yard line, and you have to you're more careful, I guess, or more cautious sometimes with your calls, and maybe don't open up every page. But we were in a situation, we were in 4-down territory when we got the football. So that changes your play calling quite a bit, because you can make decisions to throw on first, knowing you could still go. You still got 3 downs if you throw an incomplete pass. And so I love those situations where you've got that middle of the field position to start a drive, and you've got the whole playbook open to do some things, maybe throw on first or second down that you maybe normally are less likely to do, and the kids really handle it well.
You face another quarterback that is mobile and likes to scramble and likes to run, and it seems like maybe you're finally getting the handle on staying home and not over pursuing. Because you see your guys in the backfield chasing the quarterback all the time, but when they stay home and they play their assignment, it's a lot easier to pursue.
It is. We've never, I don't know if we've ever faced so many quarterbacks that could run. There was a day when that was a rarity, or that was a maybe twice a year thing, and yet week after week we have faced mobile quarterbacks. Even quarterbacks that are considered pocket passers are still mobile and able to run, and our quarterback David's shown ability to run this year, but it's amazing how much we're seeing it. And of course, scrambling and buying time and throwing the ball downfield, and coverage is breaking down. But our kids have gotten better, and I think they're learning how to stay home. They're learning how to keep their shoulders square and not chase and get in bad positions. And we'll face a quarterback this week that also can run.
I got to ask you this. We've talked about this the last few weeks, but every week more and more, Dylan Cannell is the go-to guy as a pass receiver.
Yeah, you and I talk about the importance of that, because there was a feeling in the first couple of weeks of the season that we score when Jaden scores, and that's not a situation you want to have to be in. You hope that he can score and find ways to score, and he's going to most ball games, but you're hoping that you can take some pressure off that and find some other weapons and become a little harder to defend. And Dylan, boy, I don't know what the statistics are right now, Petro, but I think he had back-to-back 7-catch games. I think this week was maybe a 5-catch game, but he's really come into his own route running wise and understanding the scheme wise, and they did some double coverage over Jaden early in the game, and I was real happy that Dylan was able to make some things happen on the backside of that.
And one of the things I noticed was that a lot of times you see David is looking for Jaden initially and then finding Dylan. And there were some passes Friday night where Dylan was his first choice right off the bat, right off the snap.
Yeah, when you see that double coverage, it may change you to start your progression somewhere else. But it depends on the play, of course. But certainly David has developed confidence in Dylan that I think is really important, so that we're balanced on both sides. And we've gotten some good production out of Clayton Bastion and Adam Erb since Adam's moved it to what we call our Y position or tight end. So we're getting more balance, and I think that's been a big key to our success, is able to go to some other people when we get certain looks.
I do want to talk about Jaden a little bit, because I was looking at some stats, and he's got 23 touchdowns already this year, 15 pass catches. He's got 7 rushing touchdowns, an interception return for a touchdown, and he's it just seems like when he gets his hands on the ball, he scores. He's got 11 touchdowns in the last 3 games. Is there a guy who's as prolific a scorer in this program? Do you remember someone who scores that often?
No. not a back or receiver or quarterback or a person that is so multi-dimensional, because, as you said, he can score on special teams, defense, running, and catching, and that's a rare combination of all those. And Micah Markley was a guy that found the end zone a lot as a runner, receiver, special teams player, and a kicker. Mm-hmm. So Micah, to me, is in that mold. Derek Borum is a guy that holds a lot of the scoring records here, and Derek Borum scored a lot of touchdowns on defense as well as at receiver. So when I say no, but Micah and Derek graduated in 2008, played in the 2007 semifinal team. Those 2 guys stand out to me as that kind of scorer. We've had other guys like Shaquille who scored a ton of touchdowns, but mostly just rushing the ball. Not a guy that could find so many different ways to score. Yeah, kind of unique.
I want to go back to the game. You only had, I think, 3 guys catch balls on Friday night, but 9 runners in the game. Yeah. And again, Clayton Bastion and Drake Ravad and some of these guys are getting some impressive runs. Yeah,
and Moses Mays had a good little run before the half, and Clayton had some really good runs, and we made an adjustment for him at halftime about what he was doing. And then Drake Ravad, every time he plays, he finds a way to make something big happen. And Rico came in and made a couple of really good, hard-nosed, physical runs for us. So it's just good to see guys. I love to watch our guys get in there and contribute. I mean, sometimes you see that in a game, but when you can have a chance to watch the guys that don't get a lot of starting reps come into a ball game like that when you've got a lead and able to contribute, man, that is such a good feeling. And just to watch some of our young guys who are going to be players for us next year start playing well and setting the tone for the following season. You're not depending upon them right now every snap, but next year you're going to. Kids like Moses and Jake Welch and Peyton Barnett in the backfield, and receivers like Dylan Cannell and James Bittner and other guys that have played a role for us this season that may not always be a starting role, but man, next year they're going to be key to our success. So watching them develop here late in the year is a real good sign.
I heard a little bit of this. I don't think anybody from Marion, but I heard a little bit of this last Friday night towards the end of the game when it was 35-0 at halftime. The final score was 42-21. What happened in the second half? And what I noticed what happened in the second half was there was an awful lot of white jerseys out on the field, instead of the grass-stained jerseys from the first half. So a lot of guys played, and even if you give up a few touchdowns, that experience is valuable.
Yeah, I make no apologies for that. I'm gonna play as many kids as I can. Sometimes I thought the opening drive of the third quarter, we had a nice long drive and we didn't get in. You're watching the clock tick down, and Carbondale was using a lot of clock. When they had the ball, their possessions were long, and I got to a point where I got to get my kids in the game. I got to get those other guys game experience, and they threw some touchdown passes on us. They made some great throws and catches. Carbondale did not give up. They continued to play hard, and my hat's off to them because they could have cashed it in. they kept playing hard and put a couple scores on the board, made some beautiful throws back to the end zone, a couple of great catches. But I'm going to play guys. And the final scores, who remembers? As long as it's a W and we get some valuable experience, that's what matters to me.
And they'll be, if those guys don't play and you go into next year and lose the first 2 or 3 games because they didn't get any experience, they'll be complaining about that too. So.
And people complain, and that's just part of the game, and I don't worry about it too much anymore. I do what I do. I do what I think is the right thing to do, and I know I make mistakes, and sometimes I hear that also. But I'm a high school football coach in Southern Illinois, and of course I make mistakes, and of course the fans complain, and most generally they're real positive, but there's always someone out there that can find something wrong with what you're doing, and if you know that as a coach going in, that's the nature of it, and happens in college and pro sports, and so it's okay. I mean, I feel good about getting those kids in the game and getting that experience. But I have wanted to keep Carbondale from scoring so much in the second half, of course, but if I can get some kids out there and get some playing time, we're going to do it.
2 things to talk about before we get into Mattoon. First of all, South 7 Conference Coach Amps.
Yeah,
pretty nice.
Yeah, it's very nice. It's just a good feeling. We've had a chance to win a few over the years, and it never gets old. It never gets matter of fact. I mean, we feel really honored to be a part of the South 7 Conference and the quality of football that's played with the Althoffs and the Cahokias and Centralias and Marion, and we've had Mount Vernon in the last 15 years has had a quarterfinal team, and Carbondale's got a long tradition of success there, and we're just proud of our conference and proud of the success we've had in this conference, and we feel like that every Friday we've got to go to work to win a South 7 game. So if we can get a chance or a share of that title, that's a big deal to us.
The second thing is that two-word phrase that keeps coming up this time of the year. The streak.
The streak, yeah.
13 years in a row. More. I mean, it's not a guarantee.
It's not.
But it's about a 98% certainty right now.
Yeah.
39 points, playoff points before this weekend's game. You're going to crack the 40 mark. Even if you get beat, you're going to get to 40. So, I mean, it's a pretty good shot the Wildcats are in the playoffs.
It's a pretty good shot. It's not something we're going to, I mean, we feel like if it doesn't happen, if we were to lose to Mattoon and we don't have the points, and the points are awfully high, and I guess anything's possible. We have in our locker room recently hung up little placards that have the conference championship years and all the playoff years, and we've had them made here in town. We put them up, and it's really cool to see our locker room with all the playoff years, all the conference championship years. We will hang up the new conference title placard this week. We will not hang up the playoff one until we know for sure on Saturday. So we think it's going to happen, but it won't go on the wall until the IHSA makes it official. But it's something we can talk about. It's a thing, a goal we work for and strive for. The kids work for. High school football makes you earn your way in, and it's not easy at any classification. But the 5A level's tough, and our schedule the last 3 or 4 years has been very difficult with really good teams, quality teams. So if you can get 5, 6 wins or 7 or more on this schedule we're playing right now, we feel pretty good about it. And I think it's made us a better team.
And I think, and I know you're not going to say this, you're going to say, well, we play who we play, and we have to do all that, but it just seems to me like people looking at Marion are going to have to say that's an awfully dangerous 6-3 team coming into the playoffs.
Well, I mean, we look at teams that play tough schedules that way. I mean, I'll give you a quick example. In 1999, when I was at Carterville, we had a 9-0 season. We were unblemished in the regular season in 1999. And our first round, we're going to get a 6-3 team or a 5-4 team. And I think back then 6-3s was like the lowest. Very few 5-4 teams got in, but we drew a 6-3 team, got a home game, but the problem was that team was Bloomington Central Catholic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And looking at their schedule, as soon as we got them, a private school out of the Bloomington area, we looked at their schedule, and the 3 losses came to some really good football teams. So we knew this was not your normal 6-3 team. That we might have been better off playoff-wise going 8-1, you know, and playing somebody else. But in the end, you know, so I know what you mean by that. I mean, you look at, they may be 6-3, 5-4, 7-2, but who did they lose to, and who did they beat to get that record? And sometimes that's more important than the actual record.
Let's talk about Mattoon. They come in with a record of 2-6. This has been a game for as long as I can remember this series, and some of these games have been in the playoffs, but even non-playoff games has been a game that has been just wild and crazy.
Wild. I go back to the first home game in this new field.
Yep.
2013.
I remember that game.
We were down big at halftime. 2 or 3 scores. Second half was a scoring frenzy. We ended up winning by 2 or 3 scores, but it was a wild game. Brad Hill, Jordan Bradford, just names like that. Then the playoff game, the second round game in 2007 was epic. Anyone who remembers that game was at that game. It went down to the wire with, you know, all kinds of crazy stuff. Then last year's game up there was a high-scoring, second-half scoring frenzy. So we've played some of the most exciting football games against Mattoon over the years, and I think even though their record is not as good as it usually is, I think they're well coached. They've got a really good tailback who hurt us last year. He had a big game against us last year, and I would anticipate they're going to, you know, feature him quite a bit against us. They're big. They got strong kids. They play in a tough conference. They'll come to play. And if history is any indication, it ought to be an exciting game.
And you mentioned the tailback, and then also you talked earlier about the fact they have a mobile quarterback.
They do.
And they've been known to, you know, even though they've been run-oriented a lot of times, they still throw the ball a little bit.
Well, they have nothing to lose. I mean, they come down here 2.5 hours away from home, and they're 2-6, and they got nothing to lose. They may come out in 5 wide. They may come out in some formation we haven't seen and give us some different looks. And so we know that they're not going to lay down. That's not Mattoon. Mattoon is a football program with a lot of tradition and a lot of pride in who they are, and we expect to get their best.
Final home game of the regular season, and you'd like to possibly get a home playoff game, but just talk about what the atmosphere in this facility has become over the last few years.
Man, it's good. It's really good. You know, the setup, the physical setup of the stadium is one thing, because it kind of has that bowl feel to it that I think adds to the excitement. You throw in our band, which is so good, and our dance team, which is state champs, and our cheerleading squad, which just is awesome. And then you add our student section, the Maniacs, and they are as good as any student section anywhere. You throw in supportive parents and fans who take a lot of pride in our school, and you create this atmosphere. My wife said everything that we do on that field is so classy. The band is classy, the dance team performance, the cheerleaders. I mean, and she's right. When I get a chance to step out of the tunnel before we come out and take a peek at what's going on, it is a great atmosphere. Sometimes I think it's almost too good, because I think teams come here and this atmosphere has to give them energy and a little bit of juice, you know, because we play some places that have no atmosphere. And sometimes it's tough to get up. But our place is loaded with atmosphere. It's exciting. Oh my gosh, I just get fired thinking about it. So we love playing here. We love our atmosphere. We love our fans. They're loud. They stay with us, and we're excited. Our fans are great on the road too, and they've helped us feel like we're at home sometimes on the road. But our home games are special.
Now I have to ask this question, and you can tell me, no, I'm not talking about it. It's a secret. You know, it stays in house or whatever. And I know a lot of times the fans aren't listening, but over the years, the assistant coaches have included Dick Vermeil, Dick Butkus, Mike Ditka, a couple weeks ago, Rick Pitino.
I didn't authorize Rick Pitino.
How do you get all those people to come be an assistant coach?
Isn't that amazing? So what happened was we have a very long list of assistant coaches, and so we decided to sneak a few famous names in there on occasion. Vince Lombardi has been here.
Just to see if people are paying attention.
See if anybody notices. And for the first couple of years, nobody ever commented anything about those special names. So we just kept doing it. So we, if you listen to the coaching staff being announced, with all the stuff going on, if you listen carefully, you might hear the name of a special guest.
Red Grange was in there.
Red
once.
Grange has been there. We honored the state of Illinois, the University of Illinois, the Galloping Ghost. We have used Jimmy Johnson, Don Shula, Bear Bryant has been here for a game. So
wow,
it's a little inside the game thing. It's a game inside the game, right?
Right.
Be listening on Friday night during the announcement.
Yeah,
you may hear somebody.
The opponent catches that and finds out they're on the sideline. It could be a little intimidating, couldn't it?
That's right. They're all certified though with the IHSA. So
all right, there you go. It's Mattoon and Marion, the final home game of the regular season here at Wildcat Stadium Friday night. Should be a fun game. 7:00 kickoff. Looking forward to it. Never want to see the season come to an end, so we'll just add a few more games on.
Let's do it. Sounds good.
All right. That's Marion head football coach Kerry Martin. For Dateline Marion, I'm Tim Petrowich.